Welcome back, everybody. I'm not caffeinated yet enough today, but I'm going to do my best here, okay? So I do apologize. You guys have been doing really, I just want everybody to know the feedback I'm getting in the comment section below is super awesome. I really appreciate that. You guys are awesome. And it makes me glad that I don't have a bigger channel because there's, just a little over 500 of y'all. And you guys keep me really busy in the comment section. You guys keep me really busy through email. You guys keep me really busy. So I'm glad that I'm glad I don't have a big channel because there's just no way. I just want you guys to know, for those of you guys that send me intel reports and send me stuff, I appreciate that. If you guys send me to Prepper Nation's channel or his intel stuff or his, I don't watch them. There's nothing that you guys are sending me more stuff. That's so funny. I appreciate it. There's nothing he has to say that I care to hear. Okay, and that's just because of the gross negligence of his reporting. Same with Magic Prepper, right? Those two especially, just the grossness of what they try to conflate is so beyond. It's so beyond the pale. It's so beyond realism. I just don't watch it. Like I said, I have, and if you go on some of their videos, you'll see nuggets that I'll put out there. You'll see empirical research and data that I link to their page. And if you look at it, it always nobody ever challenges it, right? So they'll say something that's completely just ridiculous, and a lot of times that's to do with the military, right? So they'll make these ridiculous claims. Then I will empirically disprove those claims and ask them if they have their own citations or tell me what I got wrong. And not even their followers at this point will even address it because it's true, right? They know it's true. And so I appreciate you guys going out there and linking these pages to them. But if that's who you watch, I find it very confusing as to why you watch me as well. Because our messages couldn't be further different. My message on sustainability and preparedness is way different than Prepper Nation's and almost opposite of Magic Prepper. I mean, they could not be more different. So I think it's cool. I'm glad you guys are here. But like I said, you can link the videos. I'm not going to watch them. Unless you, like I said, I might, if sometimes when numerous people link information, link videos, like I'll get a couple for like Magic Prepper's latest video. I went and I watched it, and I think you guys are only linking stuff that has, a lot of military claims on it. But yeah, it's garbage. It's complete garbage. And all I can do is I can call it out. I can leave empirical data, leave empirical research, and just have them, because they are playing to an audience, right? And I'm sure they really do care about preparedness and sustainability. I'm sure deep down inside they think that they do, but you can't be. I mean, you can only get so much wrong, right? You can only intentionally lie to people so many times before, to me, there's no point in watching. There's no point in even, engaging, right? Because like I said, how many times do you have to get something wrong before, it's like a slap in the face. How many times are you going to slap me in the face before I'm like, you know what? Maybe what you're saying isn't right. Maybe I should think about that. But I get it. Like I said, it all comes down to, I know most people out there that watch preparedness YouTube, you guys have families that you're taking care of. You guys have kids you're taking care of. And you guys just want to be left alone. And I get it. You spend all day caring for your family, doing the things that you need to do to take care of your family. And when you get a little bit of downtime, it's comforting, or it's enjoyable, or it's entertaining to watch these videos about how you are so important that the government's going to come after your expired freeze-dried food and your camping supplies. For some people, that's what gets them off. And I'm just being candid. Like I said, my channel is not a family-friendly channel. We talk about reality here, and reality is not family-friendly. That's why you insulate your families from reality. And that's the truth, right? We do. We insulate our families, our children, from the truth of the world because we actually care about them. And so in this channel, I talk about the realities of the world. That's why it's not a family-friendly channel. And I get that, you know what? After a long, hard day, after all the shit you go through fucking day in and day out, Sometimes it's just you want to watch somebody feed you a little fear porn about how the fucking government's gonna come in and fucking take your expired shit, take your campus supplies, and fucking it gives you little fucking mind scenario game to play out. Cool. If that's you, that there's nothing wrong. I mean, do your thing. But I got to call it out though, because some people do really think that this is somehow going to happen. This is somehow a reality, right? And so, like I said, I'm going to talk about the Army National Guard in DC real quick, because that seems to be a real touchy subject. And before we do, I want to play this clip for you, and then we'll get in hot and heavy.
The number of National Guardsmen envisioned has gone from 10,000 to 15,000. Now it's 20,000. Why is that?
Those are available. That doesn't mean we're going to have those here. The Secret Service is working through needs on a day-to-day basis, but National Guard has to be staged nearby to be useful. They're not a 911 force, so you have to pre-plan your use of National Guard forces. And a lot of what you see, Scott, is confidence building. As I said, Secret Service's plan was already very resilient for any threat like January 6th, and many times it. There's a lot of people who are very committed to the safety of the incoming administration, of the government, and of the people here in the Washington metro area, have done this before, and they've done it successfully with much worse threats than you saw evolve on January 6th.
During the attack on the Capitol, many police officers at the Capitol did not draw their weapons. If there is a breach around the perimeter of the inauguration, is that what we're going to see? Will it be the same?
Well, it'll depend. I mean, if it's a person climbing a fence who doesn't appear to be armed, then that person will be seized, arrested, and removed. If it's people coming over a fence with guns, you will see guns drawn. We expect our officers, A, to defend themselves, first and foremost, as part of accomplishing the security mission. And that's one of the challenges of being a law enforcement officer, is you have to make the decision based on not knowing what it is that challenge is going to be in a split second. And so rules of engagement are something that the officers talk about extensively beforehand. And I'll create two pots here. There's all the civilian law enforcement, and then there's National Guard.
5'6", 5'7", 5'8".
And the National Guard, some of them may not have the kind of crowd control training that you might expect with civilian law enforcement. We try to place them in places where they can provide security, but are least likely to be called on to have to make decisions like that.
So in that video, you saw DHS acting Deputy Secretary Ken, I can't pronounce his fucking last name, so I'm not going to try. And he's talking about the troops that are in DC. And it's important to realize that if you think that video almost seems like he's being disparaging of the Army National Guard, it's not intentional, okay? For those of you that have served, actually have served in the military, right? Which I always think it's funny. You have all these people who have never served in the military, has no idea how the military works or operates, but they have no problem telling you that they're gonna kick down your door any second and take all your fucking shit. But that's another, that's another conversation for another time. He's not, I don't believe he's purposefully trying to be disparaging, but he's speaking to a reality and a realness that a lot of people I don't feel like understand. The Army National Guard as a whole, and all military branches that have reserve units, whether that be Army National Guard, Air Force Reserve, they have the Air Guard, Navy Reserve, Marine Corps Reserve, So, I mean, even the Army has a reserve, this outside of just the National Guard, right? So you have all these different reserve units, and these people are compiled of all sorts of people in society, right? Everybody from your McDonald's worker to your doctor. I mean, business entrepreneurs, secretaries, firefighters, police officers, they all make up different facets of the Guard, of the reserves, of your reserve ready force. And so he made a very good point there. We'll call him Ken, Probably should have a little bit more respect for the DHS acting secretary, but his first name is Ken. I can't pronounce his last name, so we'll go with Mr. Ken. He brings up a really good point, Mr. Ken. He basically, he states that he doesn't want to put Army National Guardsmen in a position where they have to act independently. Basically, he doesn't want to put them in positions where they have lots of discretion. And the reason for that is because, like he makes note, there's a training gap there. You know, he doesn't believe that they have the riot training and some of the other training necessary to do certain functions, right? And by and large, that's true. If you think that the Army National Guard is a force that is even capable of going door to door and conducting possibly direct action, because that's what it would be, right? I mean, we saw in Breonna Taylor's case where you had officers that had, no joke, signed search warrants from a judge, and they knew that there was narcotic dealing and trafficking going on. Regardless of what you think about Breonna Taylor, regardless of what you think about the boyfriend, regardless of what you think about the situation, nobody's perfect, right? And she was engaged in unlawful activity as what we can now know in totality. Does that mean that she deserves to get shot? Does that mean she deserves to die? That's something that we can armchair quarterback all day. But what I'm telling you is, regardless of what you feel about the situation, we had a few things. We had a lawful search warrant, a lawful no-knock warrant, but they, according to what we now know, they did knock. So you have a lawful warrant to do a no-knock search signed by a judge. You have officers that are trained and have done this numerous times, and this is the outcome, and this is the public outcry. And somehow, preppers, fucking all you fucking conspiracy theorists motherfuckers, you think that the Army National Guard is now just going to go door to door and all of a sudden the government's going to be okay with it? There's not going to be an outcry? Are we being serious? The Breonna Taylor, there was riots in the street for months. And you think the Army National Guard is just going to walk into D.C. and start doing no-knock fucking raids? I mean, the majority of D.C. is people of color. So when I hear this nonsense about what the Army National Guard is supposedly going to do and all this other fucking bullshit, it blows my fucking mind. It blows my mind how these same preppers this summertime, right? This summertime can be talking all this fucking shit. They can be talking all this shit about how Antifa's rioting, Black Lives Matter's rioting, and they're talking about all the security apparatus issues. They're talking about just how disparaging it is that people are destroying property and stuff. And they're doing it for what they perceive to be an unlawful entry that resulted in force, right? And so they have no problem actively stating that, yes, this caused an outrage that caused all these different groups of people to be upset. But they somehow think that it can be done in a nationwide way without any kind of pushback from the general population. Yeah, I'm pausing because of how utterly ridiculous that sentiment is. And you know who's not going to be able to answer that question for you? Prepper Now, or Magic Prepper, or Prepper Nation, or any of the hashtag preppers. Put any of the hashtag preppers in there. They're not going to be able to explain that to you, because the idea from somebody who has served in the military is it's an utterly ridiculous sentiment, right? I mean, I did combat search and rescue with some of the military's best helicopter aircraft, some of the best personnel. I mean, you're talking about guys that literally lived, breathed, trained weapons, tactics, SAR, CSAR, like these guys, that's all they did for a whole career. That's all they did. I mean, these guys are cream of the crop, above cream of the crop. And there's no way, shape, or form that you take all those helicopter squadrons that conduct CSAR that would even be able to remotely do any kind of effective door-to-door raids and take everybody's rice, beans, and camping supplies. And we wouldn't even be able to do that in a small city because of the direct action components, the logistic components, supply components, readiness components, right? So let's just take it from that aspect. It's mind-boggling that somebody could even state what we saw, for example, with the Breonna Taylor situation, all the outrage that caused, and the outrage it still causes, but yet somehow you think the Army National Guard is going to take their 50,000 troops and go door to door in D.C. in a predominantly African-American minority communities and take all their shit. Grow the fuck up, guys. Grow the fuck up. Ridiculous. Just utterly ridiculous, just from that standpoint alone, okay? Now let's take a look at some of the other aspects, right? You have Army National Guardsmen, right? The nasty girls, as I like to call them. Great guys. You have some awesome people there in the Army National Guard. But like I said, you're taking everyday people and you're expecting them to do direct action, put them in direct action lines, something they're not trained for. That's why when they're in DC, just like Mr. Ken said, they were going to be conducting different security functions, checking badges, checking IDs, right? Making sure they had the right credentials to be in certain areas. They are literally there as a human fence of force. That's what it's supposed to be. You see them and it's like, okay, these people are looking for certain things and they are literally, that's what they're doing. Their discretion is, this person's supposed to have this badge. If they don't have this badge, you hold them here and you contact somebody and somebody else will take care of it. That's literally the apparatus. It's trained for the lowest common denominator. Okay, now you're probably asking yourself, well, unapologetic prepper, why are they still there? I'm like, well, that's a great answer. That's a great question. And here's a really easy answer. Because they're getting federal money to be there. Okay, you have Army National Guard troops from all different states that are there, and when they're there, they're getting federal money. That means the state doesn't have to pay for all that stuff because they're active duty right now. Okay, so it's a money thing. So think how much it costs for the state each month to not only host Army National Guard trainings and drills, but all the other stuff that comes with it, right? Pay, hotel accommodations, food, gear, training. I can go on and on. So all those consumable funds, all those 1F funds, all those funds are now coming from the federal government. And I'm not trying to overdo it here, but I need you guys, if you guys are literally going to listen to people, and if these people are literally going to talk about how the Army National Guard is about to do some horrendous acts against the Constitution of the United States of America, I'm sorry if I, decide that I'm going to throw a little bit of logic and common sense in there. So yes, there is a huge motivational factor for federal funding to keep your National Guardsmen in DC. They're getting paid right now. The state's getting a lot of money to have their Army National Guardsmen there. That's a huge incentive. And it's funny because you see the National Guardsmen that have been pulled out, places like Florida, places like Texas. Why are they getting pulled out? Because of the disrespect that they were shown in the parking garage, and other entities, right? They feel like their troops are being disrespected and not doing what they need to do. And these are states that don't necessarily have funding issues with the Army National Guardsmen. Because it's really funny when you're looking at the Army National Guard, and anybody that's been in the Guard, anybody that's done any kind of administrative role in the Guard that's just above the NCO level will explain to you, that there are lots of issues with Army National Guard, depending on what state you're in regards to funding, in regards to readiness posture. And a lot of those readiness postures are based upon funding, right? If you keep having equipment that breaks down, if you keep having vehicles that break down that are not being able to be put into service, that causes your overall readiness to plummet. If your Army National Guardsmen have yuck mouth and they have dental classifications of like 3 and 4, guess what? They're not able to deploy. And so a lot of the readiness issues they're running into are funding related. Wouldn't it be nice to have a way to get that funding? Come on, guys. Follow the money. Root of all evil. All that bullshit you guys know deep down inside your noggin here. Funding is a huge motivator and factor to keep your Army National Guardsmen federally funded in DC. Here's another thing to think about. I think the most beneficial thing, if I was the federal government, that I can receive from having troops currently activated, right, is the after action report. That after action report is going to be the gold standard of not only deploying troops, but mobilizing in general. A MOB. This is a MOB that we've never seen happen before, at least not in my experience with what I know from the reserves and National Guardsmen. I mean, this was an all-out mobilization of units from all across the country on the White House in a very, very quick amount of time, right? I mean, extremely fast. Like the Marine Corps, the reason why they are so fucking awesome at what they do It's because you are literally getting some of the world's best warfighters, and they can deploy and be anywhere in the world, within 72 hours, within 24 hours, realistically, but within 72 hours, you can take a Marine Corps regiment and they can be boots on the ground, ready to kick some fucking ass. That's why the Marine Corps is so fucking awesome. Okay, that's just what it is. You have guys that are filled with piss and vinegar that are 100% trained to conduct any kind of war, any kind of austere environment, and they can be there within 72 hours. Boots on the ground, ready to rock and roll. They don't, the readiness, they have that shit on point. The Army National Guard, not so much. So it's very awesome, and it's very, very incredible to see that they were able to get so many mobilizing troops and units where they needed to be. And that is something that I think for the after action report is going to be the most important thing, right? What were the goods, what were the bads, how are we able to make this more effective, right? Because as we can see, and what Mr. Ken already said, most of the troops that are there are not necessarily there to perform any function, right? They're just, we need bodies there, right? A lot of them didn't have weapons. So this, for my opinion, the best thing that you can get from having these amount of troops mobilized is to at least have a basic understanding of what it takes to mobilize them, the costs associated, infrastructure that you're going to need. How can we do this better, right? And the longer you keep them, the more data that you have for understanding everything from food, housing accommodations, birthing, we'll call it birthing accommodations, infrastructure sets up. How can we make it to where we don't have to put these guys in a parking garage in the future? There is so many different things they're going to learn from the after action report that's going to be generated from the military leaders that were in charge of this mobilization. That's just the truth. If you want to know why they're keeping them there and what's the most important thing, to me, if I was a military leader, or if I wanted to, that's the most groundbreaking thing I'm gonna get, because like I said, this has never happened before. So the intel you're gonna get from that, the goods and bads, that after action report is going to become the gold standard for future mobilizations. And I know that now that you're listening to this, everything I'm saying is making sense. I know everything I'm saying is making sense. You know why? Because it's based upon reality and is grounded in reality. This idea that these troops are going to be there and they're somehow there to do these no warrant, direct action, CQB, house to house, search and seizure of your expired freeze-dried food and camping supplies is utterly ridiculous. Utterly ridiculous. And like I said, I've already given you the citations for what I'm talking about here, and I will leave them again in the description box below for you guys to take a look at. But, people want to freak out, and they want to create things in their mind that aren't there. And one last thing, since we're talking about, Army National Guard, and we're talking about, door-to-door confiscations, let's talk about Katrina, because everybody wants to point out Katrina, and that's a great thing to point out, right? As we all know, and I'm saying that tongue in cheek because most of you guys don't know, the police chief at the time that made this command, his name was Eddie Compass, and Eddie Compass was having issues with people that were breaking into higher affluent areas, white neighborhoods, and there was lots of reports that they were stealing firearms and they were stealing other things, right, valuables from these higher end neighborhoods, because these higher end neighborhoods had received a mandatory evacuation order. Meaning that by and large, they could not be there. They received orders to evacuate those neighborhoods. It was not unsafe. So it was a mandatory evacuation. And these mandatory evacuation areas, predominantly white neighborhoods, were being broken into at unprecedented rates. So therefore, Eddie Compass signed the order to go in and remove the firearms that were there that were causing problems in the streets. Now, I'm going to pause and say Eddie Compass was a complete fucking idiot, and I don't think anybody's doubting that. And if Eddie Compass watches this, sorry, dude, you fucked up. Anyway, unpause. So, we know that was the reason for why he went in and, yeah, he fucked up. And there's federal legislation now that would prevent this from happening in the future, but preppers can't be, there's no reason to be discerned with the truth here, right? Anyway, so that's what happened. So you had these law enforcement officers that went in and went door to door to houses that looked like they were broken into, whatever, and they seized, I think, 3,000 firearms altogether. I think that was the end number there. And to some of their surprises, guess what? There were still some white people left in the neighborhood. Fucking crazy, right? And so there were still some people, and I'm just saying white because it is predominantly white area, but I'm sure there was people of all color, races, and creeds that were still left behind, that still stayed behind. And yes, and they got their firearms taken from them. Now you'll notice I keep saying predominantly affluent white neighborhoods because they were predominantly affluent. Eddie Compass did not take his officers, and the Army National Guard did not go into the minority neighborhoods. He didn't go into, Section 8 housing. He didn't go into the hood and try to enforce rule of law there. Why do you think that is? Exactly. Too many incidences of direct action happening. That would make it unfeasible and not, it would, if you're expecting to get into a firefight at every single house you're going into, you're not going to do it. The juice is not worth the squeeze. Operational risk management. Okay, guys? So, all I'm asking for, all I'm hoping is you guys use just a little bit of common sense that I know you guys got. All right? I know there's a lot of fear porn out there. I know people are freaking out on the fear porn and people are trying to feed you all this garbage, right? But let's just look at the incidences that we really have in a logical standpoint, right? Like I said, you really think the administration that cried and was all upset about Breonna Taylor is going to now order 50,000 of their troops who can barely get their yuck mouth taken care of, who can barely pass physical fitness tests, who can barely pass gun quals, that don't train in CQB direct action or even going door to door, slicing the pie, going in there and seizing camping supplies and rice and beans. You really think that that's what they're going to do? And they're going to cause all these other Breonna Taylor incidents to happen, especially in D.C. where it's majority people of color and black. Like I said, if you don't realize how utterly ridiculous that is, I don't know what to tell you. But I get it, right? Like I said, I understand it from the nuance from the beginning. Everybody has families they want to take care of. Everybody wants to take care of their families. That's totally cool. You do take care of your families. That's awesome. You come home, you have a little bit of time to yourself. And sometimes you just want to go down the sci-fi rabbit trail of what happens if the government wants to take my shit. That's fine. Do you. But remember, when common sense, science, mathematics, and overall reality has to play a factor, just remember these words. Remember the nuance. And for those of you guys that would send me to Prepper Nation and Magic Prepper's channel, like I said, I just don't got time for the nonsense. I know what the military does. I was in the military. I know what the military does. So I don't really have a whole lot of time for people that never served in the military that want to talk to me about all the sci-fi things and possibilities of all this insurrection nonsense, right? It's just, there's just so many double standards that I don't have time. I'm busy enough here doing real things. So there you have it. I hope you guys learned something. For those of you guys that do use common sense and do think logically and realistically, I hope this video was helpful for you guys. Like I said, it is, you just have to look at it from just a point of nuance. You just have to look at it for the reality of what it is. Okay? So there you have it. Remember, a lot of people that serve in the military, a lot of people that are law enforcement officers, they absolutely love their communities. They love their country. They love the Constitution. Just keep that in mind as well. As always, guys. As always, long live the Republic. Have a good one, guys. Oh, and if you disagree with anything I said, leave me a thumbs down. Leave me some empirical data for me to look at. And I know you guys, some of you guys are probably gonna be funny and just link, Prepper Nations and Magic, Magic Prepper's channel, and that's cool. That's funny. But yeah, if you have something articulate that you would like me to know, please let's have a conversation. All right, guys. Love y'all. Have a good one. Bye.